Family, they're great. But when it came down to the spirituality of it, like my grandmother was her mother was a santera, and like that we grew up with that being it was kind of frowned upon, by most people. Sorry, Harvey.
You can clip it on.
Oh,
You sure?
and
And
then
then
it
it doesn't.
Oh man. Okay.
Or don't.
Okay, I'll just hold it.
Just be aware.
Okay, yeah, rubbing it. Okay, yeah.
I want to hear you. That's all.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Sorry. Oh, my mustache is sweating now.
You're beautiful. It's okay. We're sweating messes together.
Sweat some more.
I grew up in a household of also a lot of all females, and I feel like that has a lot to do with why I'm so empathetic, and why I respect women and can understand each woman on a different level. And what was I point of saying? Oh, so growing up with in a spiritual household, where that was taboo, kind of, which still is, but it's crazy because nowadays it's a lot more accepted. The whole Santeria and whatever, and my mother was very anti that because she's seen like crazy things growing up. But her great grandmother used to take her to the park to sacrifice chickens and things like that. So that was really, my mother grew up like, that's crazy. So she tried to get me and her. We grew up together. Pretty much, my mom had me when she was young. So we grew up together and we explored all different types of religions, from Christianity to Buddhism, Jehovah's Witness, everything under the sun. And it took both of us to realize that it comes from within, like this light all comes from within. You don't have to be a part of a religious group. You don't have to be part of a, sorry, I'm studying so much. You don't have to be part of any sort of, conformity or whatever. You can just find healing and blessings in yourself. And that's something I'm really appreciative that I got to share with my mother. And now I find that she's going through things. She's sick, and I try to remind her that the strength isn't within her, and I feel like she doesn't feel that. Sometimes she doesn't feel like she has that strength, and that's being around. For example, Gia and Rafa has really opened me up to understanding understanding my mother. It's crazy how that sounds, I know, but I get to see her be a mother to her daughter, and I get to see what my mom was going through, because literally the same age gap between my mother and her and Gia. So I really get to see it from a different perspective and see what my mother's going through, and see that she's trying to be strong for me, and see that she doesn't want me to go through what she's going through. And lately, in regards to all of the spirituality and life and the way the world works, my mother, though she is in tune spiritually, she also is very stuck to the ways of the world, and we have to work and we have to pay bills and we have to do this. And every time I say something to her, I'm like, Ma, the system, they're out to get us, they're feeding us this. She's like, oh, when your conspiracy theories, like, and it's crazy. And it's like, I wish that she had this growing up, and even though we did do things together and we did, explore, I wish that she was able to have a space where she can come together with other women and talk about things like this, things that we all question, things that are on our minds, things that sound crazy, but they're actually not crazy. There are different dimensions. Everybody deals with things differently, and yeah, I just ranted a lot. I just wanted to say thank you guys for allowing this exchange of energy. Now that I've done sweated out all the water I drank for the day. You all are amazing. You all are beautiful. Everything is an illusion ultimately, but it's important that while we're existing in this time, that we are happy and that we are fulfilled, and our time is very short. But surrounding yourself around the people that make you happy and make you feel good and like you have a purpose and you're not crazy, and is just, this is really important, and I look forward to doing this again, and thank you guys. Thank you.
Can I speak? It's really interesting how like you talk about like you grew up in a female household.
Yeah.
Like for me, I grew up with just like my mom, so I grew up in a female household. But I hated women. Like I grew up just like my mom's very like masculine in the sense that like she doesn't show her emotions. Like the only emotions that she shows is like anger and frustration and like disappointment, and it's like, you know, I grew up around that, and you know, growing up I never hung around women. Like I always hung around with other guys because you know, I was like taught like you should be more like the guys because, you know, you're more stronger that way. If you're like like the stereotypical women like being emotional, that's not accepted in my house. Like my mom's Japanese, so you know, I recently discovered in my multicultural psychology class that Asian Americans, it's taboo to show your emotions. And that really opened a light to me because for so long I've bottled up so many emotions. You know, it was so hard for me, like, you know, just to cry. Crying for me, like whenever I cried and my mom was like, why are you crying? You know, it's not allowed. Like I've only seen my mom cry like twice in her life. And once it was because like her cat died. And the other was because she was like crying because, you know, I wasn't doing well in like school or whatnot. And it really affected me like deeply because it's just like my mom always has these like high standards of me, like what you were talking about, like the idea of like success. And in like Asian American like households, it's like there's this like model minority myth that, you know, you're going to be like you have to be successful and like fit into that mold. Like for example, like you have to be good at math, and I hated math. I was good at it, but I hated math, you know, and I hated like technology. I hated like computer. I didn't want to do anything around that. You know, my mom like pushed me to be like a lawyer or like a doctor, but like I just never felt any of that. And it really like hurt me like in my junior and senior year of high school, because like all I was focusing on was like grades. I never did anything outside of that. Like I never branched out to like clubs. Like the only thing I did in high school was like basketball, because my mom did basketball in college. So I was like, why not try it? Like being a founding member, like why not do that? And so I did it, and you know, I wasn't happy. Well, for like a number of reasons. I mean, I liked the sport, but it was just like, nah, I just didn't feel it. And you know, I went through like a deep depression because my grades fell. And you know, like growing up, like my mom was always like, you can never ask for help. And I didn't reach out to anyone. Like I had a boyfriend at the time. We broke up, like we were in like a 5-year relationship. So since like my freshman year to, he was a sophomore. So yeah, he was kind of like my outlet, like my escape. And so I kind of used him, and he didn't really understand what I was going through, because he himself wasn't really like, he didn't love himself. He hated himself. Like he would always tell me all the time, like how he hated the color of his skin. And I just, and I was always like there for him, and always giving. And, and he never took it, and eventually, like, I burned out, like, throughout my junior and senior years. Like, I didn't ask anyone for help. Like, the friends that I had in my freshman year, like, I completely stopped talking to them. Because, like, one, my boyfriend was jealous because they were pretty much guys. And two, like, I just stopped because I didn't want to ask them for help. And I felt ashamed if I did. Because my mom was taught me, like, you're not supposed to ask for help. And she did everything herself, raising me. She never once like asked anyone for help. But it's funny because my mom did take help when me and her were homeless in New York City. Like, we call her abuela, and she's Dominican. And just one day, like, she came across like in the streets and saw my mom and I. I was a baby at the time, and she was like, yeah, well, it was like to my mom, like, do you want a place to stay? And my mom took it. And my mom, like, I mean, she's forever grateful, but it's like, you still instill this, like, mentality that you can't ask for help. And, I didn't have that, like support network that I should have. And, I was going through a lot of, like, identity issues as well because, I'm Japanese and Salvadorian, but I also grew up in a Dominican household because I was raised by a Dominican family, so to speak, because my mom would always go to work. And my father is Salvadorian, but my parents were never married, and I only saw my, like, father, like, twice a year. So, like, Christmas and my birthday, pretty much. And, whenever I would ask my mom, like, why can't I stay with dad more? She's like, you don't need him. Like, he don't pay the bills for us. Like, he don't pay child support. Like, none of that. And, and I always kind of painted the picture like my father was kind of like a bad person. And, like, whenever I asked, like, about my other side, like, about my Salvadorian culture, she was just like, why do you want to know? Like, and she would always, like, push me away. Like, you don't need to know about your Salvadorian culture. You're Japanese. Like, be proud of that. And, like, yeah, like, I'm proud about my, like, Japanese heritage, but my mom doesn't also know that there's a lot of, like, colonialism associated with Japan. Like, Japan has invaded and terrorized other Asian communities and countries, and my mom refuses to, like, believe in that, whatever, because she, all you see is, like, a first world country and, like, all the anime and, like, the technology that we built, and my mom, exactly, and she doesn't see that. I forgot where I was going with this. Yeah, but, like, I never had, like, a support network. So when I came into college, it was just, like, a scary thing. Like, I didn't tell you this, but I didn't tell her.
So many things you don't tell me, girl. I know.
I know. Like, I didn't tell her this, but, like, I grew up in a, like, well, my high school was kind of like we didn't go through AP, so it was different. We went through IB, so it was International Baccalaureate. So we take tests, like, the same as people from all over the country. So it's more rigorous, I like to say. But yeah, there was always this pressure, like, you need to go to college and, like, you need to apply for this and blah, blah, blah. And, after my grade job, like, I didn't want to go to college. Like, that was simple as that. My mom's like, no, you're going to college, you need to go to Ivy League. And I applied, but I told my mom, like, I'm not gonna get in. Like, I can't explain the drop in my grades, unless I have a legit, like, sob story to tell, the admissions officers. Like, I'm not gonna be admitted in, so don't, like, sob. And I mean, yeah, like, I got rejection letters, like, to, my no surprise. But she got angry, and I go to currently John Jay because I wanted to be, well, like, an FBI agent. Because I saw a documentary, like, The Thin Blue Line, if anyone's ever seen it. And so I just got really involved in, like, this idea of justice. So I went there. My mom wasn't proud of me, of course, because it's a CUNY, it's a public school. My mom doesn't think highly of it. I think it's bullshit, because I love John Jay. Just saying. But yeah, yeah, roughing it. But when I came into college, I really didn't have, like, that support system and that support network, and it was kind of me, like, finding my way, through college, like, I guess establishing those, like, support networks and the support system. So it was kind of like, I hate saying this, it's like my motto of, like, my fellowship now. It's like going outside of your comfort zone. So I just started applying to a lot of shit because I didn't want to repeat of junior and senior year. And I had to figure that out all myself, but but it turned out well because I got a scholarship and I did 2 internships, and I ended up meeting Bianca. She was a career advisor at the time for all the peer leaders and my internship, but she ended up being my mentor, and I love her forever. I know she doesn't like it when I like, cause you need it, and you deserve it. And she I am honestly like so grateful for her because without her, like, I wouldn't have been able to like, I mean, I still like now struggle with my identity, but it's been a bit easier now because now I know what I have to do. I have to venture out and find myself and not listen to all the noise. Like my mom telling me, you need to do this, you need to do that. And like my mom's held me back so many times. And even now more than ever, she's still holding me back. But, like I try to help her. She doesn't believe in like mental health and like mental health issues. But, you have to remind yourself that there's only so much you can do at that point, right? Like, you can tell your parents, like, why don't you,
I feel like we forget sometimes that our parents are just people like us. And we
Right.
have them on like this pedestal and it's like they're just figuring out life too. And there's things that they don't get either.
Exactly.
And it's a different time. We're in a different time. We have so much knowledge accessible to us. And for them, sometimes that's like, oh, too much knowledge is not good.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, yeah, we just have to realize that they're just different people and their choices goes for your parents too, all of ours. Their choices were their choices. They don't have to be ours. We're old enough at this point where we can make our own decisions, our own choices, direct ourselves in the direction that we want to go and our paths, and that's it. And just surround ourselves with people who likes like us.
Yeah, like I'm really glad that I had this like talk because like for me it's like, one, I'm an introvert, so it's kind of hard for me to talk in front of people. I like to process information first and then talk, right?
And write it down and then say it.
Right. I like to write things down, so I can't really like physically write anything down, so it's kind of hard for me to process.
I told her I'm going to healing circle. She goes, oh my God, can I go? And I was just like, yes. I was like, let me double check, yes, but
I didn't even
know what I was like, what part of yourself came out today, girl? I'm grateful for it.
I didn't even know we were gonna be recorded, so it was like even more exciting
you were
on top of that.
Forgot.
Yeah, she totally forgot. Yeah,
she
she
was just
totally
kind of like, you want to come? Okay, yeah, sure. Here's the address. Go.
But I'm really glad because like I do feel like even our parents and even like those older than us and the older generations do need this kind of like circle to talk about it, but it's just like they're so stuck in that mindset, that you don't need to ask for help. Like we can do it all ourselves, but in reality, we all can't.
There's but so much we can do. We do need help sometimes.
Frank, that's our next group. These guys' parents. That's what we're gonna do. And you guys aren't invited. All right, we're gonna do it at another.
I don't want to be invited.
Yeah, right. Okay, you don't want to come. Great.
On Tuesday, we're doing a group with men over the age of 50.
Yeah.
So what you were saying,
I wish my dad was around.
we're still evolving, still trying to figure things out.
Oh, here, I'm sorry. I got carried away. Thank you so much. Yeah.
So guys, this was, let me just say, it was amazing, to be around, such evolved women.
An honor.
It's
Absolute
an honor, privilege.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked because I know how this process works and I know what can happen when you bring people, of like mind and, talk about, what you've been through, the struggles, that's what brings us together. Again, my story, your story, that's how I heal. All right, that's how I'm healing because it doesn't stop. It doesn't. There's no end. And you know what? I don't want it to end. I'm having fun in this process. It wasn't so much in the beginning, but it takes off and it just gets better and better. No matter what you go through, it gets better and better. So I guess I want to ask, so we do want to do this again? Can we? Can we keep this going? Yeah. Saturday. I mean, is this the best time? Saturday, 7 o'clock.
Or we can talk about it together.
Yeah, and figure out dates.
We don't have to think about it right now because I know everyone has different schedules and we can figure it out. Even if it's just you guys come and we do a little something by ourselves without cameras. Not, we can do that too. But when it all works together.
Well, let me just say that, right? You guys, to me, the way we develop this is for you to be. You said angels? It started out as Spark Angels. You said angels. We started